All right, so we're just waiting for some more people to roll in here. So welcome to the webinar. Today we're going to be talking about our new Better Backyard Certificate Program. This is a program that we just launched just a week or two ago. We've already got some really great feedback, and some people have actually already signed up for it. So we're ready to go, and if you guys are ready to go, we're also able to get you guys some signs for your yards. They're printed and ready to go. So if you guys are interested in getting involved with this program, feel free to reach out to me. I can help you guys out with anything as you're trying to get certified. But if not, I'm trying to make this webinar a little informative, not just on what the program's all about, but just giving you some ideas about things you can do in your backyard as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. And just a reminder, if you guys are having any audio issues, you can also switch over to listening through your phone, or if you're having any issues with video, typically the best thing that you can do is to log out of Zoom and then come on back into Zoom. So we will get started right now. All right. So today's agenda, I just wanted to go over quick. We're going to talk about the certificate program, and that includes the benefits of participating and the benefits, for wildlife and the environment, as well as for yourself in your own pocket. We're going to talk about eligibility and who is eligible to participate in this program and what type of properties we're looking for. We're going to go over how to participate in that whole kind of process of getting certified and participating in the program. And then I'm going to go over the checklist and the certification process. I also am going to leave some time for looking at some examples of some conservation practices that you can use in your own yard. And of course, if you guys have attended any of my past workshops, I will open up some Q&A time at the end. And even if it's not on topic, I am happy to stick around and answer any of your questions. So to start off, I actually want to see if I can do a poll with you guys. And let me see if I can pull it up here. All right, so you guys should be seeing a poll on your screen. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes and pick whatever applies to you and your personal situation on your property, what your primary goals for your backyard or property is. So there's a couple of answers you can go in there. So I'll give you guys a minute or two to get your answers in there. Looks like about half of you have answered so far. Just give it another few seconds. All right, looks like everything's slowing down here. I'm going to end the poll. All right, you should be able to see the results there. And this is very interesting. I just wanted to kind of get a gauge of what you guys are planning to do in your backyards and what your primary goals are. This is a pretty new program, so if there's anything that we can do to adjust it or make things more clear, it's just all good feedback for me. It looks like the majority of you guys are interested in wildlife and pollinator habitat, which is awesome because that was one of my primary goals for this program. But lots of other options you guys chose. It's really great. I'm really happy to see all the diversity and everyone has different goals in here. So that's great. But no matter what you put on there, everything qualifies for this certificate program. So you'll be able to improve aesthetics. You'll be able to actually manage your open lawn spaces that you do have. And because you're able to improve soil and water health, we'll be able to actually help you out with some more green lawns that are more drought resistant. We're gonna, if you participate in the program, potentially be able to reduce your costs and time for maintenance. Stormwater control is a big concern around here. of course, any wildlife benefits, reducing pollutants, and even being able to harvest your own edible, fruits and veggies. And then climate resiliency as well, which is going to be huge as we keep going into the future here. So just very interesting, very cool. I'm glad to see you guys are all really into wildlife habitat. So that's wonderful news. So about the program. So this is through the Columbia County Conservation District. And like I said, we just launched it about a week or two ago. And we have hosted prior webinars and workshops, and they are actually available right on our Conservation District website. And I mentioned that because there's some really great resources and information that I've reviewed in the past with you guys that really could be applicable to this program. So there's some practices you can do in your own backyard that I go into a little bit more detail on those. So if you have free time at the end of the day or any other time, honestly, they're up on our website, and we have a YouTube channel, so you can watch those webinars as well, or you can download those PDFs. But the goals of this certificate program primarily, like I mentioned earlier, is providing habitat for native plants and animals, but also improving water quality, improving soil health, reducing pollutants, reducing stormwater, erosion, and flooding, which is a big one for this area, improving climate resiliency, simple, cost-effective solutions that we can put into our properties to achieve those goals. Also, there's going to be quite an emphasis on more of a community type stewardship. So not thinking of our yards as one individual unit, but thinking about the community as a whole and working together for a greater impact. And always keeping in mind that more green spaces means healthier, happier people. And that's something I went into on a prior workshop. There are so many benefits of just green trees and having nature back in your yard. So once again, that's just another benefit that you can have, not only improving your own pocket and for wildlife, but it actually is really great for your own health and happiness. So wonderful, wonderful benefits that the environment will serve for you. So again, trying to kind of repeating a little bit here, the benefits of participating in this program is to be a part of a countywide initiative. This is for any Columbia County resident or property owner to participate in. So our overall goal is to clean up our county and our watersheds, improving water quality and reducing pollutants and whatnot, and a whole variety of other goals that we have. But it's a countywide initiative for us to do this. And again, there's an emphasis I'd like to put on with community partnerships as well. You can steward and restore the vital natural resources that we have here in Columbia County. And again, another webinar I've been through with you guys. We have some really great natural resources to benefit from out here. So we'd like to preserve those and utilize them as best as we can. Reducing impacts of stormwater, flooding, and erosion. Of course, everyone has seen the impacts that we've had in recent years. So we can actually improve our watershed's ability to store that water and reduce the chances of it from having any impacts from flooding and flash flooding and those types of situations. We're also going to look at improving water quality and quantity. So like I said, reducing water so that we reduce the amount of floods that we have and the impacts from those, but also improving the water quality. So anything that stormwater would pick up, hopefully if we can control our stormwater, we would not be able to pick up as many pollutants and whatnot, or erode as many stream banks as possible. So we'll be improving our water quality, and that also includes drinking water quality, which of course is super important for all of us. Another benefit is restoring habitats for pollinators and other native wildlife, which of course sounds like that's everyone's goal here, so that's great. Spreading environmental awareness and education. And you'll notice on the right here, there's a nice little sign that you guys are gonna be able to put into your properties so that, after you do all of the practices that you have on your property, you'll be able to tell your neighbors and people driving by what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing. Saving time and money on lawn care. I'll get into that a little bit later, but being able to reforest areas and reduce your lawn area, you're really going to save a lot of time, money, and even water and irrigation and other types of maintenance practices like that. You'll be able to promote sustainability for future generations, and I think this one's really huge. Thinking about our resources that we have, our natural resources, and trying to improve them for future generations to utilize and enjoy, so that they're not left with just a bunch of open space that lacks very much value. And I mentioned the bonus here is that if you are certified through our program, you will receive a free 12 by 18 yard sign that you can put in your yard, and it will highlight all of the efforts that you've done, and again, really help educate your neighbors and people driving by about what's going on at your property, and what the benefits of that would be. So who all can apply? This is, like I said, open to all Columbia County residents. At this time, it is just Columbia County, but I have had some requests for local counties like Montour County to get involved. That may or may not be able to occur in the future. We'd have to look at some grant opportunities and partnerships in that area. But as of right now, this is only available for Columbia County residents on properties. And that could be any type of property. It could be your own house and backyard, or if you own a business with some lawn, you can utilize that property as well. Schools, municipalities, farms, whatever type of property it is, if it can use any enhancements or improvements on it, we want to get you guys involved. And it doesn't just have to be someone's backyard. It really could be any type of property that you're having that's an open space. So it can be urban, rural, suburban, commercial area. It doesn't really matter, private or public, as long as it's an open or developed space. We would prefer to work with that. But if you already have a forested area or a really vibrant pollinator garden already, that absolutely will still count for the certification. And if you want to go a step further, you can maybe enhance that a little bit more. But again, anyone from Columbia County, any property, we'll work with you. We just want to see those open developed spaces get a little bit more wild. So the other thing I want to emphasize, again, is that community partnerships. So partnering with your neighbor and with your community will make a greater impact. And all of those benefits I had listed earlier will be greater and greater. So that includes, individual yards. But imagine if you talked to your next door neighbor and said, hey, I want to do a pollinator garden. What if we combine it and use both properties? So neighborly collaborations, right there, you would instantly double your impact. And you can do even more impacts if you get an entire community involved. So collaborating with the communities, you can go a step further. And if you guys are really into it, you can do a municipality-wide collaboration. And of course, my ultimate goal would be for a whole county-wide collaboration. But if you guys want to get groups together and work together, the more the better. That's definitely something we can work with. And it doesn't just have to be, again, residential spaces, but parks, schools, businesses, any unused open space, collaborating with people to get some more impacts out here. One thing I do want to emphasize is that each property will receive a certificate and sign. So not just each project, we want to be able to acknowledge each participant's efforts, because of course, we couldn't be more happier with you guys helping us out and getting involved and really helping improve our county's natural resources. So every property will get a sign if you qualify for the certification. And that'll also, again, just really help do more education and educate people driving by what's going on. So the more signs we can get out there in the county, the better. So how to participate? Pretty simple process. If you guys download our checklist, there's an entire little packet you can download, and it gives you all this information. The first step is actually an optional step. You want to do an initial site evaluation. and I can come out, or you can hire, you know, a forester or a landscaper or whoever you trust, but they can come out and give you an initial site evaluation and give you some recommendations, what you can do to maybe improve some pollinator habitat, or what you can do to manage some water, but just give you some ideas. And again, that's something you can contact me for, or if you have another trusted environmental professional in your area, you're more than welcome to utilize them. Not a requirement, but it is definitely recommended. So once you kind of evaluate your site and identify the goals that you have for your site, you'll want to go on and you download our certification checklist, which again is going to be in that little packet that you download. And that's just on our website at columbiacountyccd.org/betterbackyards. So of course, when you have your checklist, you'll identify what your goals are and you'll go ahead and implement those practices. So however long it takes you to do what you want to do, or if you can even at least show that you're starting a process of doing something, those will count. And when you are ready and you think that you've checked everything off your checklist, just give us a call over here at the Conservation District. We'll schedule a site visit and verify that everything is intact. If everything's verified, we'll give you a Better Backyard certificate, as well as a yard sign that you can put in. Of course, you'll just display your yard sign and also maintain conservation practices as needed over time. Maintenance is key for these things to actually work and give you the benefits that you would like. But the trade-off there is that we kind of have smaller lawns and whatnot that we're working with. So hopefully maintenance would not be concern. If anything, you'll probably reduce your maintenance so you wouldn't be mowing as much and whatnot like that. So downloading checklist, it's right there on the website. So when you get on the website, you'll go to the Better Backyards tab, and there's going to be a little brown button that says download certification packet. You'll click that and get the packet, again, with all the information and the checklist in there. And you'll notice down on the bottom there that we have some current certificate holders. If you guys are willing to, we would love to be able to take a photo of you in your yard with your sign and highlight your efforts here right on our website. So you may be able to get down there if you receive your certificate. So we already have a couple of people that have already qualified, so that's great. So now I'm going to go over the actual certificate and the checklist that you guys are going to go through as you're thinking about what you're doing with your properties. And there are 4 main categories that we're going to check off. So the first one is habitat stewardship, which is the primary goal for this certification process. And of course, when you are thinking about habitat, you need those the 3 vital things for life, which are food, water, and shelter. So there are some subcategories there as well. The other categories are clean water and stormwater management, conserving native plants, as well as implementing other conservation practices of your choice. So here's the checklist for you guys to check out. Again, you guys can download it. It's the same as this here. And I'm just going to go over the checklist and give you guys just a couple of visuals and ideas and examples about what you can do in your own backyard to be able to check these off. So we're going to start off with habitat stewardship here. And so, you know, as you look at the list there, you're going to see the 3 different subcategories. And in food sources, you want to check off at least 2 from that list. So something like a bird or butterfly or hummingbird feeder, even a squirrel feeder, you know, just supplying a food source of some sort for everyone. Another really big major one is providing a source of nectar and pollen, as well as fruits, nuts, seeds, and berries, and preferably from native plants. They just have a much more nutritional value for wildlife. Wildlife are used to eating those things and foraging for those types of things. So native plants right there is pretty key to it. So nectar and pollen sources, of course, are going to be something like a flowering plant. But you can also plant, you know, shrubbery or anything that flowers or produces fruits, nuts and seeds and whatnot. I also have on there caterpillar host plants, which if you download our certification checklist, that whole packet there, there is a resource on page 5 where you can see what the host plants are. And I highlight that in particular because it is so important to have plants specifically for caterpillar larvae. So think about, for example, on the left there, you see the monarch butterfly on the milkweed. It's a classic example. Those monarchs have just evolved over time with the milkweed. They are the only thing that can forage on the milkweed. Otherwise, the white sticky stuff in the center is actually a toxin for most wildlife. So monarchs need the milkweed in order to survive and grow their larvae, and that eventually come back into butterflies. So having host plants for caterpillars is vital for being able to have butterflies in your area. And not only that, but caterpillars are a massive food source for songbirds. So if you're trying to attract songbirds, that's another benefit for you as well. So moving on to water sources, this one's a little tough, you know, if you don't have a natural water source like a stream, wetland, or spring. But of course, you guys could put in a small pond or a water garden. There's also bird and butterfly baths, which are extremely simple solutions. And if you guys are interested in putting in a rain barrel, you can even have an open-topped rain barrel where it's open. Of course, you'll want to manage for mosquitoes and utilize that water as much as possible, but that is another water source you can use. And in terms of shelter and nesting, of course, if you buy a bee, bird, or a bat house, or you can make your own, those are wonderful options that we absolutely encourage. However, there are other options you can do, which are as simple as putting out a pile of logs or brush or just a pile of rocks. Those little crevices and whatnot in the rotting logs are really great habitat for a lot of critters. In particular, a lot of bees actually use wood. So instead of, you know, a carpenter bee going in and utilizing your deck wood, maybe they can go in and instead they can utilize these log piles. So that's something else you can put in. And I also have on there dead wood or snags. So, you know, as you have trees and whatnot, you know, maybe leave a chunk of the stump down on your property and just allow it to be there. Again, that's a really great hole for, you know, woodpeckers to eat bugs in, or some critters to get in there and use as a shelter. So dead wood is actually really important for a lot of wildlife habitat features. Some other options are, you know, having evergreen trees and shrubs, and that's just important so that in the winter time, they have somewhere to go and stay warm and be able to survive the winter time. So evergreen trees and shrubs in particular are really important. Also perennial wild meadows, or establishing a no-mow zone where you have some of those floral resources that also function as a shelter kind of thing, could be another option for you. And if you really want to get crazy, you can go with a full forested area, which would include an upper canopy, like a large tree, a lower canopy, like a small and medium tree, and then shrubbery and ground covers as well. So you can really get creative with it. You can make this really simple, or you can go really big and reforest the area. But there's lots of options there for you guys to choose from. And again, you'll notice in red, it tells you exactly how many of each you would have to check off in order to qualify. So moving on, we're going to look at category B, which is clean water and stormwater management. And so these are some really great things that we can do when we're talking about, you know, flood control in this area, or even just, you know, if you guys have noticed, we have maybe not as frequent rains, but they are heavier over time. So managing for those excess rainfall is going to be really key to managing for clean water and stormwater control in particular. So something you can do is implement a rain garden. These are actually engineered structures, so it's more than just putting a pile of plants all together. You dig out a section of your lawn, and generally it's a pre-identified kind of location where water naturally comes together. So it might be a place that comes off of a driveway, or it comes off of your roof, and maybe you connect your drain spout to it. And I put those two photos there so you can see the top photo is a rain garden after a big rain. It's right next to the road and the driveway, and you can see that there's a lot of water storage in that area. Now, I know a lot of you might be concerned about mosquitoes when you see something like that, but like I said, these are engineered, so you can actually calculate and figure out how many, approximate hours it would take for that water to infiltrate into the soil instead of going back into the road. So typically, that water is only going to be there for maybe an hour or two, and it will soak back into the ground, so you wouldn't have to deal with anything that would want to breed like a mosquito or something in that type of habitat. That lower photo there shows you what a rain garden typically would look like on a normal day when it's not raining. Again, it kind of also works as a pollinator habitat, and it gives you a really nice aesthetic to your property as well. Other options are rain barrels, and some of you may have joined me for my rain barrel workshop that I have. And again, that webinar is available on our website, but rain barrels are a really, really great way to capture all the water coming off of your roof and reusing that water. And again, you can see the gentleman there planting his plant, or watering his plants. And it's just really great. It's all gravity fed, so you're really not really putting any energy inputs into that. You can also direct your downspouts away from an impervious area, and in that situation, you probably want to put something like a rain garden in there so it has somewhere else to go. Less than 10% impervious surfaces, and that just basically means impervious surfaces are areas where water can't infiltrate. So think about like a rooftop or a driveway or a sidewalk. So trying to have like as minimal amount of impervious surfaces you possibly can on your property will really help you manage some of the stormwater you're dealing with. Also, having permanently vegetated swales, ditches, stream banks, so areas where water is flowing, making sure that's vegetated, not mowing, up against the stream, or not mowing in these wet areas that creates ditches. And also is really great mosquito habitat. So if you keep that permanently vegetated, you can see some of the photos there. You can have a bunch of flowers and shrubbery and whatnot, but keep that area kind of off limits a little bit and utilize that more as a way to capture some of that extra water, as opposed to just pushing that right back off into the street and into our streams. Also utilizing stream side, or what we call riparian buffers. So those are just buffers that include shrubbery, trees, tall grasses along a stream bank. And I put two photos there. The top one is a pretty well-managed riparian buffer. Could probably use some extra trees. Those trees have really large root systems, so that'll help stabilize the soil a little bit more. But I also put that photo on the bottom because I saw on the left-hand side of that photo, you can see that all that runoff from that parking lot would be running right into that stream, and you can see kind of where the erosion is, and there's not very much vegetation. Whereas on the other side, there's a bunch of vegetation, and you can see there's significantly less erosion going on. So I thought that was just a really great example to show you the benefits of putting in some stream-side trees and not mowing up to a stream. Also having 25% or more tree canopy cover. Canopy cover is extremely important, not only just for wildlife habitat, shading things. You can shade your house and improve your heating and cooling costs throughout the winter and the summer. But canopy is also really vital for catching rain while it's raining, and then that catchment will actually evaporate back into the atmosphere. So having trees will significantly prevent water from ending up on the ground and into our streams and causing any problems. Converting turf grass to a no-mow zone or a garden area. Again, I have a nice webinar on our website that goes over how to establish a no-mow zone. So that's another option there. And maintaining a height of at least 3 to 4 inches or more of grass on your lawn. And that can be something as simple as raising the height of your mower to the highest setting. And I put that photo there. They have some clovers there, something I go off of, especially even on my property since I live in a suburban area here. Just a general rule of thumb is trying to not mow lower than the clover. So clover will grow about 4 to 6 inches. So you'll want to try to maintain that clover, or at least just cut the tops off of it. And of course it can grow right back. And that's again, really great foraging material for bees and other insects to forage on. So some of these things can actually go hand in hand, and you might be able to have a no-mow zone or something like that, and also be able to qualify for a nectar source. So some of these will actually go hand in hand, so you don't necessarily have to implement so many things. And you might be surprised how easy this might be to implement. So next, native plants. And once again, I did a webinar on this one, so you can find some really great information about local native plants on there. And really the goal here is just to provide trees and shrubs as species, but also perennial wildflowers. So looking at the landscape and making sure there's a pollen and nectar resource throughout the year. So generally, when I say throughout the year, that means May through September. And you can have different things blooming at different times of the year. So trying to make that a more continuous bloom season will really help wildlife even more. And I mentioned earlier about creating a mixed perennial wildflower meadow or garden. Again, these things can go hand in hand. So if you decide to go with the no-mow zone or a meadow area, that can check off for both of them there. No invasive and more ornamental plants on the property. That one's really important. So I have no problem with anyone having an annual or an ornamental plant on their property, but if it has shown to be something invasive, so it spreads all over the place and maybe it outcompetes other plants, especially native plants, we really don't want to see that. We don't want to see that spreading out into throughout the county and elsewhere. We want to keep those things under control and really improve our native plants. And something else you can do is remove, or at least start the process of removing those invasive species that we do have. Would be really, really super important and vital to protecting our native plants, but also protecting the wildlife that requires those native plants to survive. And finally, the last category here is just other conservation practices. So these are kind of the miscellaneous things that you guys can do. One of those is really simple, trying to reduce your use of pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, and using more organic methods, or at least natural recycled methods. So that is something that's very easy and simple to do. You can also reduce any inputs that you're putting in. So things like gas-powered mowers and weeders and stuff like that. You can switch over to those more manual types. That's just another option for you. I also mentioned raising your mower height to a high setting. I mentioned that earlier. I'm skipping ahead there a little bit. And also mowing your lawn every 2 weeks or as needed. So I had gone over that in another webinar, but they have actually found that if you manage your lawn every 2 weeks, if you mow it, it actually gives you enough time to grow those floral resources for birds and bees to utilize. But if you wait for 3 weeks, that gives the grass enough time to grow taller than the flowers, so you don't have as much of a benefit. And if you mow every 1 week, you're just really hurting the grass, and the grass, you're putting a lot of stress on the grass. So you're going to have a lot more issues when it comes to, if we had a drought and stuff, it's not going to be as healthy of a grass. So general rule of thumb, mowing the lawn every 2 weeks is going to be the most benefit for your own pocket, but also for wildlife and bees and pollinators. Minimize or even eliminating the use of salt during the winter time. This is something that we don't actually think of too often, but it's becoming a larger and larger problem. In the winter time, as we put more and more salt out in the system there, it ends up in the waterways, and we're starting to get a little bit more salty water. So of course, think about, the trout and all the other critters in the stream. They really can't handle salt water. They're meant to be in fresh water, and unfortunately, that's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. So it would really help out if we could reduce, or at least eliminate and minimize the amount of salt that we're using in the wintertime. Using annual soil tests or just checking on your soil and really trying to improve the soil health. That photo there I chose because you can see it's got a really nice dark organic quality to it. So it's not just kind of like a sandy silt or something. You're going to want to make sure that you have a lot of biomass going on in there for some good nutrition and quality for plants to grow in. You can utilize green mulch and fertilizers. So an example of that is like grass clipping. After you're done mowing your lawn, you can collect all of that and take that over to a garden and utilize that as a mulch. You can do the same with leaves, composting and cover crops. Definitely, it's a natural fertilizer, so it's kind of like it came out of the ground. Why not just put it right back in the ground? And of course, it's free, right? You don't have to pay any money for it. You can also compost, create your own compost bin. Again, something you can kind of reutilize and use in your own yard, and then you can have happier, healthy plants and veggies in your garden if you would like to use that type of composting for yourself. Also, creating a vegetable garden is an extremely sustainable way to, have food, but also, those plants, a lot of them do produce little flowers and blossoms for other things to benefit off of as well. Some you may or may not want to benefit from your garden, but that is another choice for you to choose. And also orchard planting, some people might prefer to have some fruit that come off of trees, but again, the more trees, the better in your landscape. So maybe having an orchard gives you even more benefits than just simply having a tree in there and helping wildlife. Maybe having an orchard or a couple of fruiting trees will also benefit you, and you'll be able to enjoy some really nice summertime fruits. And I also put on there, and these are a lot larger scale projects, but if you guys, are having an issue and you really need something a little tougher to kind of boost your backyard and the resiliency, you can restore a wetland, restoring floodplains, and also stabilizing stream banks. And those are some things that are a little more complicated, and the Conservation District is here to help you out with those types of things. So by all means, if that's something that's a concern for you and you need some help with it, give us a call and we can absolutely come out and help you, and possibly even help you write a grant for some funding to complete the project. So again, those are larger scale projects, but we are more than happy to include that as a certification qualification. So just a couple of other important notes. You may have noticed already, the ones that are highlighted in red just tells you the minimum number of requirements per category that you would need to check off in order to reach certification level. Another note is I highly, highly encourage everyone to follow their local municipality ordinances. Some municipalities have weed ordinances or mowing ordinances, how tall your grass can get and whatnot. So please follow your municipality ordinances, and if there's anything that isn't working for you, maybe you can reach out to your municipality and ask them for an exception, or possibly, best case scenarios, revising those kind of outdated ordinances that we have. And of course, there are some helpful resources available in that packet that you'll download to get the checklist, which is on page 5. And if you are looking for even more information or resources, again, contact the Conservation District or myself personally. We will definitely help you get all the information that you're looking for. So I just wanted to show you guys just a couple of examples and just some inspirational photos to maybe inspire you to go out this summer, while we have all our free time and we're enjoying being outside, what you guys can do to kind of alter your backyards a little bit. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy and huge. If you want to keep it, small and, tucked in a nice little corner, but you can have a beautiful little butterfly garden in there. Of course, that's going to be great habitat for other critters. Perhaps it could even be a rain garden, collect things from your downspout. So corner features, it doesn't have to be anything huge. Also borders, along a fence row or along your property lines, utilizing those kind of spaces that we don't typically walk on and utilize, but using those as more of a beneficial environmental type of space. And then also think about meadow areas. You can, find a chunk of your backyard that you'd like to set aside for a meadow and just let it grow free. And there's some really great pollinator packets and seed packets out there that you can very easily establish these plants instead of getting transplants. But you can do transplants as well, and you can even throw a tree or two in there for some extra shade. But just kind of setting aside a larger area is certainly another option. And within those large meadow areas, you can also put walking paths. So creating a place that you can utilize as well, and be able to get in there and have access to it pretty easily. Here are some other examples of just thinking about, how creative you can get with some things. You can have one bird feeder, or you can have, 6 bird feeders. And this person here in this photo did a really great job at, having a colorful floral kind of setting that attracts those birds. And of course, then you have the bird houses right there for them to utilize, and you might be able to place that in an area that you can look out a window and see all the birds visiting your bird houses. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy or huge. It could be just 1, or it could be 6, but just getting creative and finding ways to kind of put everything together. You can have berry patches that may benefit you or wildlife, or both. But again, just putting a little fence in there and maybe a cute little sign. And you don't need to be too fancy if you want to put in like a bird bath or a butterfly bath. It could be as simple as getting one of those clay pots with the saucers and flipping it upside down and putting some sweet smelling fruits in there and some water for them to utilize. Some more examples, I talked about dead wood features, and that could be something just as simple as a small wood pile that's out of the way under a tree, or out in the open if you prefer. But that would be great habitat for any critter that wants to use those crevices, but also habitat for things that drill into wood and utilize wood, so they're not drilling into your own house, where a carpenter bee or something like that can just go right to that log and have some great shelter. You can put up your own signs as well, maybe talking about people, if you have a lot of dandelions and clovers, maybe you can put a sign up there and educate people about the importance of these weeds, and how beneficial they actually really are. And again, I mentioned about evergreens being year-round cover, so you can even set aside an area where it's primarily an evergreen garden. Also, rain gardens, I talked about them a little bit earlier, but setting aside an area where water naturally tends to accumulate, and being able to have that as a holding place and store water, so that it can infiltrate into the soil and go underground into our groundwater supply, as opposed to going into our streams and causing flooding and whatnot. Also utilizing rain barrels, like you can see in that upper right-hand photo, as well as riparian buffers down on the bottom photo there. Again, you can see that there's very minimal erosion going on in that stream, and it looks like there's been some trees planted there recently, but also having those tall grasses will also adds a lot of really great root structure that helps stabilizes those streams. I just wanted to make a really quick note about lawns and why we are talking about improving our backyards instead of just having these really green open spaces. I always call them green deserts, and I've heard other people call them that as well, because that's basically what they are. They really don't have any benefit to anything in the environment, with the exception of, it looks really nice and it looks really maintained. But really, other than that, there's really no benefit, and it's very costly to manage it. And something that's really interesting is that in the United States, the area of lawn is about the same size as Texas, which is 63,000 square miles, which is just absolutely massive. And that is actually 3 times larger of an area than our annual corn crop that we grow. And again, the value is pretty much just aesthetic value. There's really nothing else that we're getting out of having these green lawns. So, I had talked earlier about raising your mower height, or you can even create a no-mow zone where you don't mow and maybe have a walking path around it. And the benefits of doing that versus having, one of those green deserts I was talking about is you're improving your stormwater permeability, so that soil is able to soak up a lot more water when it has a lot of really great root structure, as opposed to really small grasses with their small roots. They don't create enough pore space in the soil for you to be able to absorb enough water. Of course, it'll also improve your soil health if you have a lot of roots. They break down as organic matter, so you get a lot of good fertility in there. Reducing the stresses on grasses, because when you mow them, they're a plant, they're a living animal. So when you mow them, especially repeatedly, once or multiple times in a week, they get really, really stressed. And so they're not as healthy. When things are less stressed and they're not being mowed, they stay green. So even just raising your mower height and not cutting off nearly as much grass is enough to really help it be a healthier plant and really survive those more drought conditions and stay green during times like right now. Also, I mentioned drought resiliency, but less water is required to, water and irrigate your lawn. So that goes hand in hand, just again, that improves soil health and managing for stormwater. Less inputs are required, again, in addition to water. You're putting less, you're utilizing less gasoline, so you're not emitting as much carbon dioxide and those kind of concerns that we have when it comes to climate change. So really kind of greening up and reducing your inputs that you're putting out into the environment. And of course, that also saves time and money for you as well. So that's a great benefit. Not mowing, of course, is going to help flowering plants survive, which is pollinator and songbird friendly. You're going to provide nesting resources for birds to build their nests, or maybe you have a deer and a fawn that wants to, lay in the grass and find a safe place to shelter. And of course, I mentioned earlier, saving time and money on maintenance. If you're mowing less, you don't need to buy as much gas. You don't need to be out on your mower. You can have more time to be in your home or out and about doing what you would rather be doing. That's just my quick note about lawns. Hopefully that's enough to convince you guys that maybe we should look at our backyards and have them function a little bit better than what we've been doing traditionally. So in summary, really get great benefits to participating in this program. You're going to be able to help restore, enhance, and create habitat for our native wildlife and animals and plants. Also protecting our native natural resources and everyone that relies on them, as well as improving, habitat for wild pollinators, reducing invasive species, improving water quality, soil health, and resiliency against extreme weathers. And I don't think I mentioned that quite as much as I meant to here, but thinking about the weather patterns that we've had as of recent and looking at the future and the predictions, we're going to have significantly more water, but it's going to be a very interesting kind of switch in how the weather patterns have acted in the past. So we're going to have times like what's happening right now this year, where we have more of drought conditions and things aren't really raining right now, but when it does rain, we're most likely going to get a pretty good downpour. And just noticing more extreme weather patterns when it comes to like wind, stronger winds, and those kind of damaging events and natural phenomena are going to be occurring a little bit more. So we have to think about being more resilient against the changing climate. Whether or not climate change is a concern for you, extreme weather and pests and diseases and everything that comes along with that is going to be something that we're going to have to think about more and more over time. And utilizing this program is going to be a great start at being able to be more resilient in those conditions. And similar to that, we're going to be able to reduce our stormwater and our flash flooding and all the effects that come with that, reducing pollutants in our watershed. So if we have less stormwater, we'll absolutely have less pollutants within our water, saving time and money, improving aesthetic value on your property. While lawns are really pretty to some, I personally really like looking at a field of flowers. So in some aspects, your aesthetic value will actually improve. Community involvement and partnerships is also really key and really important to get the whole community involved, caring about the environment and working together And I think especially during times like right now, I think that's extremely important. And lastly, but not least, creating opportunities for education and stewardship of the properties that we have here in Columbia County, talking to our neighbors, friends, and family and coworkers and telling them, you know, what you're doing on your property and how they can do it. And maybe you can even vouch for how much time and money you're saving. So really great benefits to participating in this program. I really hope all of you guys, you know, go onto our website, download that checklist, brainstorm it. This is going to kind of be on a rolling basis. So you guys don't, by any means, don't have to establish everything by this year. You can take your time, think about next summer, what you want to do then. Hopefully this program can continue over time, and we can keep growing and growing on everything that we're doing. I do want to, one last time, give another shout out to our past webinars. There's just some really great resources on there, and you can find those on our website under the workshops tab. I've done webinars that talk about natural areas of Columbia County. So if you guys are interested in recreation and utilizing our natural resources for those purposes, that's a great resource. And something I highly recommend is checking out our No Mow Zone webinar and the PDFs there. It has some really, really great information when it comes to establishing pollinator habitat and managing your lawn. Rain barrels and native plants are another topic that I've gone over. And I also just want to give a shout out that we are going to be doing yet another webinar on Friday, August 21st at noon. So it'll be another Lunch and Learn. And I'm going to be talking about patterns in nature, which I'm really excited about. It's really fascinating to be able to look at things on different scales and be able to see all the patterns that kind of continue to repeat in nature and what the benefits of those are and how we can actually utilize patterns in improving things like climate resiliency and whatnot. So definitely check that out by all means. And then also the Conservation District every year has a native plant and tree sale. So, you know, sign up for our newsletter. If you go onto our website, you should get a pop-up that asks you to sign up for our newsletter, and that'll let you know when that's open and all the information. Unfortunately, we did have to cancel that for this year, but we are really hoping and excited to get back to the spring for next year to be able to offer that. So with that, that's all the information that I had for you guys today. But I am happy to open it up to questions. We have about 10 minutes or so till 1 o'clock, but I'm happy to stay on even later. So I'm just going to go through the chat box there. And if anyone had any questions I didn't cover, I'll answer them. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box and I will be able to answer them right here. Or you can call me or give me an email that's up on the screen. You can email me directly. And I will be able to answer your questions or give you resources. Or even if you're ready to see if you qualify for the checklist, give me a call. We can schedule a site visit and I can come out and look at your property and maybe we can get you a sign for your yard already this year. So I'm just gonna go looking for some of these questions, but again, just feel free to drop some questions in the chat box below. Claudia actually recommended the Biggest Little Farm documentary is a great example. I've actually seen bits and pieces of that, and I agree, that's a really great documentary. I think it actually might be free on Amazon Prime. If you guys want to check that out, it's a great documentary that talks about just a small property that has some production of vegetables and whatnot on there, and they really help improve the environmental values of that property. So cool, yeah, definitely check that one out. Well, it looks like someone's interested in doing a similar project in Maryland, which is really cool. Yeah, anyone that, if you're not from this area, I'd be more than happy to help you guys set up a similar program in your area. Tara asked me if there were any other conservation districts considering this. Not that I know of, but I'm actually in touch with all the conservation districts. I'm the watershed specialist here, so there's other watershed specialists in other counties. And I have sent them actually my materials and said, you know, if they were interested in doing something. So they have all the materials, but that's up to them if they want to coordinate the program or not. Hopefully they would. That'd be awesome. Lisa asked, how do we control invasive species in a no-mow zone? So my biggest recommendation is to actually tackle those invasive species first. And it depends what you have. Some of them might be as easy as just manually pulling them out. So something like garlic mustard, for example, it's pretty easy to identify and you can pull it out. It's got a pretty weak root system. Other things, like if you're dealing with like Japanese knotweed or stiltgrass or something like that, you're going to want to deal with that first. And you can do that either manually or mechanically. But in a lot of cases, you may want to go the more chemical route and purchase some glyphosate product or something like that. Ideally, it would be more aquatic safe so it doesn't get into our watersheds. But yes, you would definitely want to manage for invasive species prior to establishing a no-mow zone. And if you're lucky enough to not have any invasive species, by all means, just go ahead for the no-mow zone, but keep a lookout for any invasive species because they do tend to emerge right when you don't even expect them. Amy asked, do you have an established procedure in place to remove the designation of someone that doesn't maintain the BMPs? I don't. We do have in our agreement section, it is suggested that you maintain the area. And at any point we can come by and take the sign off the property. That is in the agreement there, but the hopes is that we will continue having these properties being maintained. So there is nothing, you know, we're not going to come over and slap you on the wrist for anything. We're all just about encouraging having better habitat and environmental stewardship here. But if something's a really bad example, we may just take the sign back. But that is not something we hope to have to deal with. Someone says they had more stilt grass than actual grass. Yeah, stilt grass is a growing problem, no pun intended. Stilt grass is actually, I actually have it on my property here, and although I'm not the biggest advocate of chemicals, I spotted it and instantly went out and got some Roundup and sprayed it. And I can honestly say that it has not come back nearly as much as it was last year. Yeah, stilt grass is a really tough one. It just spreads everywhere. Wherever it can set a seed is where it will go, and it just seems to really outcompete a lot of our turf grasses and lawns around here. So stilt grass, if you guys aren't familiar with what Japanese stilt grass is, type that into Google and you may be surprised to find out that it might already be on your property. Someone asked if the pictures I showed today are a good example of options, if they're available on the website. After this, hopefully by the end of the day, I will have the PDF for this presentation and a recording of this presentation uploaded onto the website, and that'll be under the workshops tab. So yes, you will be able to reference these photos on the PDF, but I don't have any photos on the actual website itself. Yeah, stilt grass seems to keep coming up, but yeah, that is very difficult emerging invasive species to deal with. So far, it sounds like the best way to manage it is putting out like a glyphosate product of sorts. I've also seen where if you just time it right, where if you allow the grass to grow as much as it can, and if you can mow it right before it starts going to seed, I've seen where that really helps reduce the amount that you'll get the following year. But again, I haven't really seen that in practice. Something to put in place of knotweed if you can get rid of it. That's a really great question. Something I'm attempting to do over at the Coker Park in Bloomsburg that the Conservation District owns and manages. I'm really hoping to try to deal with the knotweed and possibly replace it with some sort of shrub that's fast growing. And fast growing is key because knotweed is definitely fast growing. And the other challenge with knotweed is that it's actually very shade tolerant. So it doesn't need necessarily sunlight to thrive, which is difficult because I wish it was as simple as planting a few trees and shading it out, but unfortunately it's not. So I think the next best step is trying to utilize that rooted space that it has and putting in some more wide-spreading shrubs. That's just a guess on my end, but that's the best recommendation I can give you as of right now. Someone asked if can multiflora rose be pink? That I'm not sure. I've only ever seen the flowers being white, but I also wouldn't doubt it. I mean, it's possible it can even hybridize with more native roses as well, but I'm not too sure on that answer there. Someone asked, do you regularly mow a no-mow zone or keep out woody vegetation like once every 3 years? Yeah, if you guys reference the PDF or the webinar that I did on no-mow zones, it goes a lot more in depth with that. So it depends on what your goals are. If you don't want to have vegetation at all, definitely mow it once or twice a year. If you do want to get some woody vegetation in there, just leave it go. Or plant the species that you prefer to have. So yeah, there's a bunch of different options you can do with a no-mow zone. No-mow zones don't have to be really tall grasses. They can also be as simple as just reducing your mower height and using mowing really less frequency or frequently. But yeah, definitely find that PDF on our website and that'll give you even more information about how often to use no-mow zones. And I can give you more information as well. If you just shoot me an email, I can get you some good handouts to read about that as well. Yeah, someone else mentioned mile a minute. That thing is also a hassle, much like stiltgrass. If you can pull it with your gloves, that would be fine. You'll definitely want to wear gloves. But I've actually heard that if you can find the original point where it begins on the vine, that you can kill the rest of the vine. But of course, obviously, the hard part is finding the original point of that vine. Again, glyphosate seems to be the best solution for something like that. Any update on the spotted lanternfly? Yes, so it was spotted in southern Columbia County. Unfortunately, it's looking like within the next year or two, it's probably going to be widespread throughout the county, possibly even the end of this year. But again, that depends on a whole lot of factors. So the spotted lanternfly it gravitates towards a tree called tree of heaven or ailanthus, which is actually also an invasive species. And that tree in particular right now is actually out in bloom. So it looks like a sumac, but it doesn't have those red flowers on it. In fact, right now it is flowering and it's kind of like a yellowish orange type flower. So if you guys have a sumac on your property or a sumac looking tree or a walnut looking tree that has these yellow orangey flowers, and it also might smell like rotten peanut butter, or I always say it smells like cat urine. It's a nasty tree to begin with, but it also is the host plant for the spotted lanternfly. So if you guys have that in and around your property, I suggest trying to kill it as soon as possible, but reach out to a forester or even myself before you do so, because those are one of those clonal type of trees that if you cut it, even more will come back. So be very careful with that. Maybe do some research first. But yeah, that's my update on the spotted lanternfly. The best way to reduce the chances of it spreading in Columbia County is to try to tackle those tree of heaven trees first. But there is lots of more information on that, and the Penn State Extension has a ton of information on that. I definitely recommend reading that if you have any questions about spotted lanternfly. And if you guys need a reminder how to see the other presentations, just go to our website at columbiaccd.org, and up at the top, just hit the workshops tab, and you'll see all of our past workshops and webinars. You can download the PDFs to to the PowerPoints, and you can also watch the webinars again. They'll be recorded. Again, I will also have the PDF for this webinar, and as well as the recording of this webinar up on our website, hopefully by the end of the day today. So it looks like that's all the questions. I'll give it a few more moments if any of you guys have any other questions. But if not, that's all I have for you guys today. And by all means, you see my contact information on the screen there. Please give me a shout out if you have any questions or if you want to get involved with this program or anything else off topic. By all means, give me a call, shoot me an email. I love to chat about nature, so anytime. All right, guys, so it looks like no more questions are coming in, but I thank you guys so much for your time coming out. I really hope you guys have a really great weekend. Enjoy the sunny weather we're having today. And hopefully I will see you next in a couple of weeks at my next webinar about patterns in nature. All right, so have a good weekend, everyone.